Hi everybody, how are you? So this video we'll call A Tale of Two Juniors, or something like that. A Tale of Two Lesters. Les Paul, that is. So we have two things from different sides of the spectrum. I've got this super clean 1960 double cut Les Paul Jr. And then I've got this not super clean Les Paul Jr. single cut. All right, look at the back of this headstock. You can see the black dart. There's actually a dart that comes down. You'll see that on anything made by Gibson. What happens is they cut the wood and the wood grain is going a particular direction. As they cut it back, they're exposing some open ends of the grain, like flowers in a vase that will soak up moisture. So they will cover that up. And again, I'll show that to you. They'll cover that up with that black dart. I've seen it on melody makers, and I've seen it on super high-end blonde Gibson archtops like L5s. It's just a thing they did, and it's rather an elegant touch. So this is a 1956 Les Paul Jr. And of course, you guys all know this, but they came out with the gold top at first, and then they needed another model, so they created this simple one-sheet dry mahogany. And you might have seen one of our earlier videos where we're talking about old growth wood. Old growth wood are trees that were fallen somewhere between 1700 and 1942. And they quit cutting those trees because they're all gone. So what they would do is cut the tree down, lay it in a riverbed, and then when the rain season came, the riverbed, the water would lift the logs and bring them out to sea, where they gathered them up and took them up to the East Coast. But they literally, because there was no trucks in 1700 or 1800, would go into the jungle and they'd cut them and they'd drag them as best they could with oxen, donkeys, whatever, and they would just lay them in the riverbed, and then that would all come out and they would be stamped or signed by the cutters. And so that type of timber was for sale back in 54, 55, when they probably bought it and let it sit and cure for years, if not decades. Then they'd cut it, put it in a kiln, and let it dry. These days, you don't get that luxury. So why would you buy an old beat-up Les Paul for thousands of dollars? It's all about the wood, baby. Even acoustically, this guitar rings greatly. So double cut, single cut. The single cut came first because it's just so graceful. They had the Telecaster, the Esquire. It's amazing to us that a 56 Esquire would go for double, if not triple, what this guitar goes for. So what's its upward potential in the world of vintage guitars? Will it go up from here? Well, an Esquire, which is made of domestic hardwoods and bolted together, where this is a glued-on neck joint, those go for 70% less than this in similar condition. It's something to ponder as you look at this. It also has a nice thick Brazilian rosewood board, and these guitars from this era are pretty big necks. The 50s ones have a bit of a V, and you can see the back of this neck has some wear on it. These are repro tuners. They're aged repros, but the originals are in the case. It has a great headstock pitch, that 17-degree headstock pitch. You want that because it makes the strings snappier, right? And then this guitar with its single coil will be nice and clean. Sorry. As you bring it up, of course. I'm going to bring this Car Mercury up a notch just to get some gain. These single cuts are delicious guitars. This is missing its bridge. That keeps the value down. The tuners have some reused buttons. That keeps the value down. It's pretty beat up, but it's unbroken. There's no headstock break. There's a pretty big scratch back here, but there's no breaks. The electronics are straight. These older pickups are fantastic pickups. And in a guitar like this, in a few years, if you decided to refret it, because it's in this condition, it won't make any difference. It really doesn't anymore to refret something. It's a lot like having a collectible car that has worn out tires. It just has to be done, and we're happy to do it respectfully on your guitar. 20 years ago they would tell you not to refret a guitar. 20 years ago these guitars were worth less. And 20 years ago, the level of competency from repair people is different than it is today. It's a pretty competitive market. Now this is a 1960. Early 1960s have a little different shape. The necks are a little bigger. This is more like a 59 neck, which is bigger. But not quite as big as a 58. But in 59, more importantly, bigger frets became standard. This is true on all Gibsons. In 1959, they started producing these jumbo frets as standard. So people tend to like that better. I, having owned a single cutaway Les Paul Jr. forever, I used to have a 56 like that one. I loved it. Never really noticed the frets. People are making kind of a big deal of little details like that, but you know, the public is maturing. Listen to that growl. Now here's the difference between these two guitars. These guitars have a different neck set. On the single cut, the neck is a little shallower, so your bridge doesn't sit as tall. On these double cutaways, the neck angle comes up a little bit, so you have a little easier time bending the strings. You still have that deep headstock pitch. You still have this single sheet Honduran mahogany that's from wood that is centuries old. So you would pay a premium for a double cut over a single cut. This particular single cut is also really clean. So you buy a guitar like this as an investment, and you're going to take care of it for a while. You don't really own these guitars. You get a chance to take care of it for a number of years, and if you take good care of it, it takes care of you because they tend to go up about 10% a year. Vintage Guitar Magazine tells us that over the course of the last 40 years, the average is 13.5%. Now that's an index of a variety of guitars they have, but nonetheless, vintage guitars tend to be good investments. They certainly beat inflation if you hang on to them for a period of time. This is one of the cheapest ways to get into a 59 or 1960 Les Paul. This particular one is way clean. I mean, it is just, I don't think there's others that are cleaner out there. I'm going to hold it into the light. You can see there's always a few scratches. This was played. It isn't mint with hang tag, but that would be a whole nother level. If there's no difference in price between the two guitars, you might prefer having a really clean guitar because it makes itself a great investment. And this guitar too. Cleans up well. Breaks up well. So there we go. A tale of two Lesters. There is the single cut And these tend to have a little more acoustical properties. These are cheaper and a great way to jump into the vintage market. This one in kind of a deliciously beat up condition. This one is clean, clean, clean with its original case. This one has a different, more of a 59 neck. This has got a little bit of a V. This has got a little bit of a U. Between the two of them, if money was no different, you would probably want this. You're going to want to spend the $13,000 to $16,000. We have not priced this yet, but soon, like today, they're going to spend in that zone. And for the $8,000 to $12,000 zone, these are great. This one is $89. This one will probably be like $14 because it is exceptional. How's that for a video on vintage guitars?